I've finally made it to Fulham. Oh, and I'm so excited about today's walk, today's journey back into antiquity. And we've walked straight into a lovely bit of railway history here. This lovely old building here was the originally Walham Green Station, which in 1952 changed its name to Fulham Broadway, and now it's a Spoons. So probably just as many people walking through its doors today as there were when it was a railway station. And next to it we have the Broadway bar, but a plaque on the top that says this was the King's Head in 1680. A different building, I would say, almost certainly. There's so much history here, it's ridiculous. Right, I just need to find the Bronze Age burial mound down here, and then we'll talk about today's walk, which is going to be an absolute cracker. I will have to look up this rather grand building here. It's a real beauty, isn't it? Not in my notes, didn't come up in my research. This is Harwood Road, which incidentally is got to be one of the noisiest places on earth, this bit here between Harwood Road and the junction of Fulham Road. Turning into Moor Park Road, and the place where I actually want the walk to start. This is Musgrave Crescent. So down here we have the beguilingly named Eel Brook Common. But apparently the name is said to derive from the raised bit of land that I'm standing on here, which was apparently originally Eel Brook Common, and the hill being a Bronze Age mound. Isn't that amazing? And looking back from the common here, you do see that Musgrave Crescent sits on a raised ground. It was built either for defensive purposes or perhaps was a burial mound. And of course you can imagine my reaction to the name was that there must be a lost river, the Eel Brook, and actually that is partly why I first looked at this walk today. Of course, the wonderful Tom Bolton points out in one of his volumes of Lost Rivers of London that the Eel Brook could be seen running along the grounds just over there along a Favart Road and drained into the Thames just south of Chelsea Creek, forming a land of mud flats with multiple channels, a muddy, marshy land that partly informs the name of Fulham. We're going to talk about that and the incredible history of Fulham, and of course the centrepiece of that is the Bishop of London's palaces. It was the oldest title deed in London until they gave it up in 1972. The Bishops of London have held this land for over 1,300 years. That's mind-blowing, from the 7th century, Erkenwald and all that. We're going to talk about all of that today. The flatness of the park today can partly be explained by the presence of an underground bunker that was here for the Second World War to protect the people of the area, give them somewhere safe to shelter from wartime bombing. Fulham is a place of ancient settlement. It's mentioned in a deed of 691 in a grant of land given to Erkenwald. That's a great name for you, isn't it? Bishop of London. 691, a grant of land was given to Erkenwald, and the name that was recorded then, I'll put it on the screen, not so different to Fulham that we see today. I think there it was Fulham. The name though has different interpretations that I've read in different sources. In this wonderful book here, Discovering London's Villages by John Whittich, we used this when we did a walk around Paddington. It's great, it's a great book. He mentions a couple of sources of the name, one meaning where the birds live, a place of home of fowls. Makes sense, particularly if you consider it's low-lying land that would have flooded on the banks of the Thames. That's very possible. The other one, which is quite interesting, derives from the Saxon word foulum, meaning the dirtiness of the water, again related to the Thames and I suppose dirty water washing up here. A slightly more interesting one though, coming from the Anglo-Saxon legal word meaning full, a place of burial for criminals, a place of burials for criminals. And he says the ham, meaning a village, a settlement, would have been added later, because I'm not sure you'd want to name it after a place where you buried your criminals. Take it as you wish. And then of course in another book that I read, They just simply say Fulham, meaning Fuller's settlement, settlement of Fuller. So take take whichever one of those you want. Maybe take all of them. In 1883 and then again in 1891, local amateur football club, Fulham Football Club, played their home games on Eel Brook Common. We'll see their current home later in the walk at Craven Cottage. And just over here we have New King's Road. Of all the parts of London I go to, it's West London, like peak West London like this, that feels the most different to me. It's got a very distinctive feel when you get into West London. I'm just trying to think of the point where it ends, because it's not even like out West London. I mean, this middle bit here, sort of Earl's Court, maybe not Earl's Court, still feels a bit central, but certainly sort of Fulham, Hammersmith, Chelsea, Barnes on the other side of the river. It's got a very distinctive, Chiswick, it's got a very distinctive feel. But it stands out in a way that you don't get when I go to South London, for example. There's a sort of degree of familiarity, and even parts of North London. This feels very different. I don't know what you feel about that. If you're from here, do you feel it when you go the other way? Now we're passing through the lovely leafy Parson's Green. It's mentioned in the 1390s for the rates, the timber rates, I guess, or the rights to collect timber here. Cricket was played here in the 1730s, 1731, 1733, and it's another place where Fulham FC played some of their matches. I think the green as it stands today was used as a bowling green by the rectors of Fulham Parish. You can see the clergy have a big influence in this area, can't you? It's the 20th of August today, and it's very noticeable the amount of brown leaves on the ground. I mean, it's like autumn has come really early. I don't know what your feelings about that are. I'm not sure I'll make it down to the incredibly exclusive Hurlingham Club with its extensive grounds, but it's most notable as being the first place where polo was played. So just down here towards the end of New King's Road is where the real action takes place. Our walk and the places we're looking at it are really centred around Putney Bridge. There's a real cluster of fascinating historical sites. The Putney Bridge end of New King's Road does feel a little bit different, doesn't it? I do remember as well there was a fantastic second-hand bookshop down here that I really hope is still there. Beautiful little bit of history here with the Fulham Potteries, which were established between 1672 and 1673 by John Dwight, who was conducting experiments using clay and other minerals, and he moved his potteries from Wigan to Fulham here. Something to do with the bishops of Chester, who quite liked Fulham. I suppose strong ecclesiastical links. Look at this magnificent building here, now a pub called the Temperance, and I'm wondering whether this is the site of the former Grand Theatre, which opened in 1897 and closed in 1934. It's got that kind of look about it, hasn't it? Obviously makes you wonder if it was a temperance hall as well, but perhaps it became that after it was the Grand Theatre. I am going to take a little detour before I go into All Saints Church and Fulham Palace to the little second-hand bookshop down here, because I may not come back this way, and it's such a precious little place. Here it is, and it's open. So much choice. Proper old school second-hand bookshop. That was a worthwhile visit. Well, incredible bookshop, just stacks and stacks and stacks. You basically, it's one person in, one person out. It's hilarious. So I've got a guide to Hurlingham Parish Church. Some of you will know what that relates to. Tell me in the comments if you do. That's a video I've been wanting to make for a while. Hammersmith and Fulham guide. I'm not sure how much of that I could use. You'll find bits of that. You'll find bits of that going in the edit, maybe as voiceover or on-screen text. And then I just saw this for £1 as well. The city of Winchester, which is the ancient capital of England. So that might be part of a series of capitals of England. And next to the 8 Bells here, which, as I remember it, is a proper old school pub. I've been in there a couple of times. Dates from 1629 apparently, or established in 1629. So the next spot on our Fulham walking tour is that majestic church over there, All Saints Church Fulham. Delightful little lane here besides the church as I look for the entrance. We have Churchgate Hall here, all very bucolic. Vicarage Gardens with its war memorial, always a very kind of poignant spot, isn't it, when we remember those who fell. Lovely almshouses here were originally built in 1680 and then they were rebuilt in 1869. Really lovely. It looks like sandstone, doesn't it? What a beautiful little row of almshouses here beside All Saints Church. So the tower of All Saints dates from the 15th century, and it's the only part of the old medieval church that remains. The rest was taken down and rebuilt in the 1880s. It's all built of Kentish ragstone, same as the Roman wall of London. And being as it is so close to Fulham Palace, a number of bishops of London are buried in the churchyard here. I'm not sure I'm going to go foraging around for their tombstones. There's also the inevitable inside. There's a bit of carving by Grinling Gibbons. You can't beat a bit of Grinling Gibbons. It always kind of gets you the pulse racing when you know there's a Grinling Gibbons in the zone. There are a few items from the old church inside. The font particularly dates from 1622. So now we enter Bishop's Park and the Palace of Fulham, home to the Bishops of London for over 1,300 years, which I still can't quite wrap my head around. And here it's interesting to see the moat trail marked here, because there was a wide, deep moat here that was extraordinarily large, and one of the stories associated with it was that it was built by the Danes when they camped just west of here, and they built the moat to protect their camp from flooding, which is extraordinary, isn't it? The moat was filled in 1921. And here we have the famous Putney Bridge, famous for being the start point of the Oxford and Cambridge boat race. Two cities that have got rivers of their own, so quite why they're using ours, I'm not quite sure. But this bridge replaced the bridge that was built in 1729, and that's a delightful story because the bishops of London held the ferry rights across the river. So without a bridge, people had to pay to go over on the ferry. They opposed the building of a bridge and then eventually lost in 1729 when the Act of Parliament was secured. But they were compensated by allowing to cross the bridge toll-free by just saying the word bishop. So I sort of feel like you should say bishop when you go across that bridge. And this bridge here was designed by the famous engineer Joseph Bazalgette in the 1880s. It's kind of amazing that London actually has any bridges at all, because there are always vested interests opposed to the building of a bridge. The Thames watermen were historically against bridges being built for the very obvious reason that they lost out as a consequence. If people could walk across the river, then they wouldn't need a ferryman to take them over there. And still to this day, there's no bridges east of Tower Bridge. And when you go west from here, I remember getting caught out doing a walk from Hampton Court. I went over the bridge there at Hampton Wick, walked down the river and realised, I had to get a boat back across the river, or walk back the way I'd just come, or walk another 5 miles on. It's interesting, isn't it, for such a modern city that we don't have as many of those as you might think. And there's this really delightful riverside walk that runs along the edge of Bishop's Park. And we have Putney there on the other side. Bishop's Park was once part of the grounds of Fulham Palace and was noted way back, even in the 16th century, for the beauty of its plants and some of its more exotic plants and trees. The area generally was known for its fruit trees, its orchards, and Elizabeth I used to be very pleased to receive her fruits from Bishop's Park, from the gardens of Fulham Palace. The diarist John Evelyn noted in 1681 how exceedingly beautiful the gardens of Fulham Palace are. And they certainly are. This walk here is just glorious. One of the finest stretches in London, I would say. So the sluice gate here is a legacy of the moat, which was filled by the tidal waters of the Thames, and this sluice gate was used to control that flow of water from the Thames into the moat. It's interesting that when they filled in the moat in the 1920s, they left this sluice gate here as a reminder. Just had a really nice lunch here at the Treehouse Cafe in the park, classic park cafe, and a surprisingly good flat white. Right, let's go for a look around the magnificent ancient Fulham Palace. This has got to be one of the most significant places in the whole of London, maybe in the whole of Britain. How about the whole of Christendom? So this magnificent Tudor courtyard, built in the early 1500s, sometime between 1506 and 1522, is all that remains of the old palace above ground. And Bishop Bonner's bedroom was over there somewhere on the north side of this courtyard, and is said to be haunted, one of two ghosts that haunts Fulham Palace. Time seems to stand still here at Fulham Palace, looking at the wonderful ancient Tudor brickwork, the trickling of the fountain in the courtyard. And when you walk inside, there is a stillness and a calm as you walk through the rooms. Bishop Terrick's dining room. This is Bishop Terrick's drawing room. You can just wander at your leisure, imagining that you're stepping back through time. This is the Great And through the cafe here you have, and somewhere in the corner behind that, I think that behind that pine tree, there's a 500-year-old oak. This ancient holm oak tree here is said to have been planted in the 1500s either by Bishop Grindal or Bishop Alma. A 500-year-old oak tree here. The things this tree has seen. What a majestic beast it is. The stories it could tell. Would this incredible tree talk about how Bishop Bonner tried heretics here at this house, and how a subsequent bishop was himself tried as a heretic. In the Great Hall there is where Queen Elizabeth I dined at a grand feast. And the house contains artefacts that date back to the Neolithic, through the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, the Roman period, all the way through. This is a place of incredible antiquity. It's really quite a staggering location. Really beautiful, peaceful, calm, lovely cafe there inside. It's just a really gorgeous spot. I would say this has now become one of my top places to visit in London, for sure. This is the walled garden through here. This is an absolutely stunning walled garden here, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful. This really is a truly magical spot, isn't it? Absolutely stunning. You would never think you were in urban London right here in busy Fulham. If you remember all the noise around Fulham Broadway back at the start of the walk, and that's just a short walk away. Well, that is a real slice of heaven in there. An absolutely magical place. Looking back here from across the shade of the trees, you can imagine the grand garden parties that were thrown by Bishop Tate's wife in the 1860s. Well, what an absolutely stunning location. So beautiful, a real little slice of heaven out there in the back. The staff there as well, they're really lovely, really friendly. It's free to get in as well. I shall definitely be back as well. For a place to go and sit on a summer's day, there's no finer place in London for me than that. That is one of the top London attractions for me. Come and visit Fulham Palace if you haven't done before. And I've been here for a music festival in the grounds and didn't really, I don't know, it's been on my list for a long time, but wow, beautiful, beautiful. One place left on our itinerary, Craven Cottage, Fulham Football Club and all that. We'll follow the riverside path to Fulham Football Club. It's so gorgeous along here, the sun's finally come out there. Here we have the glorious River Thames, old Father Thames. And just right here, right on the banks of the Thames, we have Fulham Football Club, Premier League Football Club, Fulham FC. The ground, Craven Cottage, takes its name from, surprisingly enough, a cottage which was built on this site in 1780 by the Duke of Craven. And it was a very large, notable grand house, more than that, I think cottage is a massive understatement, with very fine interiors. Of the various residents of Craven Cottage, obviously the standout one for me is Edward Bulwer-Lytton. I wrote about Bulwer-Lytton in my book, This Other London. What a very curious character he was. He was a novelist. He wrote kind of like an early form of science fiction. One of his stories has become incredibly influential in the world of slightly out there theories, a book called Vril, or The Coming Race, and some people took those ideas in that fantasy novel, that Victorian fantasy novel, very seriously indeed. The cottage burnt down in the 1880s and was basically destroyed. The land was left abandoned, and Fulham, who were looking for a home, getting fed up with playing on places like Parson's Green and Eel Brook Common, I think they had 12 or 14 different grounds in total. They acquired the site and played their first game here in the Middlesex Senior League in 1896. I mean, the best view of Fulham football ground is from the other side of the river over there, and luckily I think I have some footage that I can use. I'll have to walk all the way back over Putney Bridge and along the riverbank on the other side to just get a couple of shots. But you can see, look, here's the football ground behind me, fancy new apartments and everything built into one of the stands. And here's the river. Is it the most picturesque football ground in the Premier League? Possibly. And here he is, the Fulham legend Johnny Haynes. I remember growing up hearing stories of Johnny Haynes. And I have deliberately not mentioned the other notable West London club based in this area today because I was coming here out of respect for hopefully the Fulham fans that will watch this video. Sorry to the fans of that other club, but you've been in videos before. So, and in the past, I always used to think this building here was the cottage, was the Craven Cottage. But I guess it was just built to give the idea of the cottage existing here on this site, because That has a distinctly Edwardian feel to it, doesn't it? Well, that concludes our wonderful Fulham walking tour, walking back through time, 1,300 years worth of history there at Fulham Palace and much more, and ending here at Craven Cottage. Wow, that was a great walk. It's really delivered in spades for me. I hope it did for you too. I hope you got as much out of that as I did. Well, obviously not quite as much because I've actually done the walk, but you know what I mean. Some people then come out and follow these walks, so I hope this is one that you can follow. Pretty easy route to follow. All the names of the streets and everything are there. So I'd just like to say thank you to you for coming along on that stroll. Thank you to my wonderful supporters on Patreon and YouTube members. All the support there is much appreciated. I upload additional videos during the month. It's just one thing left to say, I guess. I suppose, as I always like to say, I look forward to seeing you on the next walk, wherever that may be. And yeah, I mean, sooner or later it will be the new river, won't it? Sooner or later we're getting nearer and nearer and nearer. Sometime in September. Take care.
It's over the meadow, over the stream. It's where I am going and where I have been. It's been a long day now. It's time for a beer. And now for home, of course I must steer. It's over the meadow, over the stream. I hope you are pleased with what you have seen.